This is TWiT.
Don't know if you heard, but today's kind of a big day in the world of Android because Android 13 Beta 1 is out. And what does this mean really? Essentially what it means is this is the first beta of Android 13 that doesn't require you to go through jump through hurdles in order to install it. This allows you to opt in via the beta program and do the automatic update, which we can talk about that in a moment because I've got some choice words, and I know you do too, Daniel, about that. But before we do, what can you expect, or so I assume, when you install Android 13 Beta 1? Some of the features that you might see. I'm not sure about the under the hood stuff, but some of the ones that I pulled out that sound at least somewhat intriguing. Actually, this first one is kind of interesting. Anyone with a treble compatible phone or treble compliant phone rather can install Android 13 Beta via the generic system images. And I don't think that's necessarily possible through the beta program. Right, Daniel? That's not something that's automatic. That's something you do have to work for in order to install it on just any treble phone, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a GSI. It's not something that you can opt into. You have to basically wipe your phone, unlock your bootloader. You have to go through a bit of a process. And your phone, I mean, this won't apply to basically anybody who isn't listening, but your phone had to also have shipped with at least Android 8. I mean, I think that's probably not a problem anymore, but that's when Treble debuted in 2017. But yeah, it's a great way to sort of test out Android 13, but it's not the same robustness, I guess, as it would be if you're running it on a Pixel. Android 13 Beta was built for Pixels. This is not going to be as feature rich. It's certainly not going to be as stable. But if you want to try it on a phone that will support it, you certainly can.
Interesting. So it's kind of analogous to like what you get. I mean, it's not the same thing, but what you get if you installed AOSP versus the Pixel version of an Android release. It's kind of like that. They're basically the same version of Android. It's just one's going to be a lot more stripped down from some of the extra kind of extended featers by comparison.
Not exactly. So this isn't AOSP in the same sense that like if you were to install basically build Android from scratch and then install it on a Pixel or something like that, that wouldn't have any Google mobile services. It would have nothing like that. This does have GMS included, but there are going to be some serious bugs, and Google has pointed out a few of them. Rebooting phone audio, it's not going to be quite as stable. But it's available for any device that supports treble. And if you can give it a go, it's actually quite fun. It's sort of like the days of the Google Play editions.
Okay. All right, that's a better comparison. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Although, also with the reminder that, hey, these are meant for developers. These are early versions of Android 13. While it is Android 13, those bugs could be deal breakers. So definitely keep that in mind. Just because it's out of the developer preview and into the beta doesn't necessarily mean it's good to go. You might encounter things that are really going to ruin your day. Again, we'll talk about that
especially at beta 1, right? I mean, like we've gone through developer previews, you assume the kinks have been worked out, but regardless, when you're doing this on a beta level, you're going to not every app is optimized, right? Like there are things that just kind of happen. I mean, Jason, and I'm sure Daniel, you got way more experience than I do because I don't want to be dysfunctional in my daily basis.
Beta tester.
I avoid this, right?
Maybe I should. But squiggly playback bar on the lock screen media player, which I mean that's a pretty minor inclusion, minor feature. But when I saw kind of shots of this, kind of has that like playful Material U quality to it. Kind of falls in line with the design aesthetic that we're starting to see with Material U with the last version and now into Android 13. A bunch of, speaking of a bunch of new Material U theming options to pick from, which I think, from my understanding, it's kind of like Before, I think you had 2 or 3 Material U palettes that were pulled, and now it's something like 12. So it gives you more options around theming based on, you know, these color palettes that are pulled out of what is the word I'm looking for? Your home screen image. There you go. Smart home controls now working without authentication, which is a really great feature that I know I have missed. You know, I get the smart home screen, and I go to change the color of the light or the dimming of the light, and then the second I release my finger, it's like, okay, now authenticate your thumbprint and, you know, or your fingerprint. And so having to do that on something like that, it's nice that I don't have to do that anymore. A new clipboard editor, so the ability to edit what's stored in your clipboard. That sounds interesting. There's also some strings of code that seem to confirm what we were talking about very recently. Michal Rahman, friend of the show, was on a few weeks back and was talking about the possibility of a removable, like a detachable Nest Hub tablet. And apparently there's some strings of code in Android 13 that further hint at that. And who knows? We've got Google I/O right around the corner, so maybe we're going to see that. But any features that, at least on paper, that stood out for you, Daniel? You know, maybe one of the ones I've read already, but anything else beyond that?
Yeah, I think the additional theming options are going to appeal to a lot of people who really like Material U. I play with this with every wallpaper I apply to my phone. Every time, inevitably, I will find the perfect accent colors. So having 4 times the number of options here is just like, it's music to my ears. I'm going to go crazy with this because I changed my wallpaper.
Is that going to hinder you from actually getting work done? Or are you going to just sit there doing color combinations all day? Or?
Today was a disaster, Ron, because I love installing betas because I go through every single screen to try to see if there's new stuff. Thankfully, Michal is like, he makes this easy for everybody now because he just really knows everything and puts it in a really easy to read format.
He basically posts like a full manual of every beta. It's like, here's everything and literally everything you need to know. And we
don't deserve it, but I appreciate it so much.
Totally agree.
And I love the squiggly line progress bar on the media player. Like, not only does it look great along with all the other improvements that have come to Android 13, but just, I love these tiny little accents.
Yeah.
And it makes Android feel so much fun, and it makes the Pixel in particular just feel new every time you load a new Android version, right? Like, think about the people that are going from, say, a Pixel 4 or Pixel 5 running Android 12. They have no interest in installing a beta come July, August when the final version is released. Like, they're going to see all of these cumulative updates in one fell swoop. I get excited for people like that because, as minor as some of these, release to release updates have been, cumulatively, I think Android 13 is going to be a massive update for people running Android 12 right now.
That's an important distinction to make because, as you know, people like you and I, anyone who's such a fan of Android and listens and watches this show and is kind of on the train of always constantly being up to date on the latest beta, it is easy to fall into the hole of, gosh, these things seem really minor and everything. But that's a really great reminder. It is the cumulative effect. That is how 90% of everyone that has a phone that might be upgraded is going to experience the jump. They're going to experience all of that at once, and that makes it more meaningful at that point, for sure.
Totally. Yeah.
Now, Ron, did you have any thoughts? Like anything that you've no?
Not really. No.
Okay. Well, Ron, are you ready for a little bit of complaining, whining?
I love it. I mean, all about Android, all about complaining. Let's do it.
All right. And I just discovered in pre-show that this didn't just happen to me. This also happened to you, Daniel. So I apologize, or I don't apologize. I'm sorry that it happened to you, just as I'm sorry that it happened to me. So I will read you the notes that I wrote down prior to actually doing the thing. I wrote a little note here that said, if you are on 12.1 beta channel or the 12 beta channel, you can opt out and it will tell you that your device will need to be wiped. Don't worry, opt out and then opt in, and you'll get the option to opt into Android 13 beta with no device wipe. Okay, this is something that I read in a few articles, and I was convinced that they were right, and maybe they were right. I'm really not sure. I did this, and my device got wiped. In fact, so this is the only device that I have at work right now. And so I can't even log into my account on it because it's two-factor authentication that requires another one of my devices to authenticate with.
Oh, no.
So, and they're at home. It's no big deal. Like when I get home, I'll be able to do it. But it was just a big bummer to expect that my phone would not be wiped because, well, that's what Google said. And then to discover that it was, I know personally on my device, I store a lot of music ideas that I'm working on. Some of them get backed up. Some of them don't until they're further refined. And so all of those I've lost, whatever those are. And it's not the end of the world. It's just a bummer that I wasn't prepared for. What about you, Daniel? Because this happened to you as well, right?
Yeah. So I was running the QPR3 Beta. I genuinely thought that Google had this figured out. The UX seemed pretty clear, right? You opt out of one, you go to opt into the other, you select the Android 13 beta program, and you receive an over-the-air update to Android 13. However, in order to do that, you have to decline the first over-the-air update that it sends you, which
that's what I didn't do.
Sends you back to the Android 12 public release. And if you don't decline that, you end up installing Android 12 and it wipes your phone. And they don't tell you have to do that on the website.
God.
Okay. So you're basically left to figure that out for yourself. Now, 9to5 Google said that Google has identified an edge case where if you opt out and you only see one program to enroll back into, which would be the Android 12 QPR3 Beta, then you do have to wipe. But this whole notion that Google does not walk you through on your device that you have to decline the first over-the-air update to inevitably get the second one that will install Android 13 Beta is a UX nightmare, even for power users like us. And this should never have happened because they never should have had this process in the first place. They should not have combined Android 12 Beta and Android 13 Beta in the same place with a UX like what we have today. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and even when if you're opted into that first, Android 12 QPR version already, when you opt out, it makes no mention of anything in that process of Android 13 or anything. It's just like, if you opt out of this, your device is going to be wiped, okay?
Correct.
And so, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, wait a minute, no, abort. And then I read the articles that were like, you do that. And then you opt right in, and then it gives you the actual option to either opt into the QPR. Yeah, that screen. It gives you that after the fact, but you don't know that initially. So it's just, there's a couple of points along that process where you're picking blindly. And there was no, like you said, there was no way for me to know what was actually happening there. I didn't realize that I needed to reject that first over-the-air update, nor did I think that that would be necessary, because I purposefully waited a few hours and then did the update, thinking that if I opt out of this and then I opt into that, there might be the possibility of there being some confusion there, because I know some of these things take time. So I thought if I give it a couple of hours and then I do it, that confusion will be cleared up. Of course, that's an assumption that I made, and I was wrong. But
that's a sensible assumption.
Yeah, I thought. Right. But anyways, it didn't work out. So this is just basically a cautionary tale to anyone who's already opted in to the older version the way we were, and you want to check out 13. Just be really, really cautious about it, because yes, you can wipe your device, contrary to what you may have read in some places. So
just completely unintuitive to what you would think the process would be.
Yeah.
Right.
This also goes back to a problem Google put itself in when the Android 13 developer preview was living alongside the Android 12 beta program for the QPRs. Because occasionally people running the developer preview would get over-the-air prompts to quote, upgrade to the Android 12 beta because the beta build was actually newer than the Android 13 developer preview. And then they would install it thinking that it was something they could do, and then it would fail because they were going to an older or a lower SDK version. And it just, like, that whole process, like, Google just shot itself in the foot by even thinking that it was possible to navigate internally, like their own systems, trying to push different over-the-air updates to different people in an intuitive way. And today's, like, it's not surprising that this happened, because I'm sure it happened to more people than just you and me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would agree. I wasn't expecting, like, I was totally expecting when I mentioned this to be like, oh, well, Jason, you totally failed to see the thing, the blah, blah, blah. But instead I was met with, oh, yeah, that happened to me too, which tells me, yes, it absolutely is happening to other people if you and I happen to have it happen on the same day. So big time caution there for everyone listening and watching.
Big red flag. Big red flag.
Yeah. Yes. It's turned upside down is what it is, Ron.
So, I mean, yeah, we got to get that right side up. But Jason, in comparison to your two-factor stumbling on This Week in Google a few years ago, is this worse? Than that?
No.
Well, because you lost everything on your phone. It wiped it. Well, like the two-factor one locked you out of the phone, but you recovered the access.
The two-factor one had the potential of locking me out of everything in the cloud. And I'm lucky that I got back in. I think the two-factor thing was a much bigger risk of, because I feel like, for better or for worse, my exposure because of the show, I think made it easier for me to get back into that account. I think other people in that situation probably would have a harder time and might not be able to regain access. What I lost on my phone, like, yes, I lost some data on my phone and I lost some things that, like, the reality is I couldn't even tell you exactly what it is that I lost. And so at the end of the day, it's kind of like, all right, this is what I went through not too long ago when I had that hard drive that I dropped. And that hard drive had a bunch of, not backed up outside of that hard drive music projects from years ago. And when I really thought about it, I was like, okay, well, I can't really remember exactly what those music projects are. And so if I can't, then it's not like I'm really missing anything important, any of the important stuff I have backed up. So it's kind of the same thing here. Most of the stuff on my phone is backed up, right? Like, just by its nature, Google phones back up to the cloud a lot of the really, really important stuff. There's just a few edge cases. And yes, I happen to have those installed on my phone. And so I lost some stuff, but I'm not really that bummed about it. I mean, I'm bummed about it. I wish it hadn't happened, but it's not the end of the world. It's not nearly as bad as it could have been if that two-factor thing didn't work out and I lost literally everything. That's different.